2 days in a row. I got my vaccine yesterday, so the only thing that my arm is really good for right now is clicking and pointing. And I kind of got myself addicted to making speed build videos. So here we go. Okay, so I decided to go with House Martell next because I started with the Tullys because I wanted to be able to make the Starks and I needed, the children, etc. And then I thought about Jon Snow. And who knows what Jon Snow's parentage is, but it is somehow connected to Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell. So to make the Targaryens, I needed the Martells to have Elia, so I went with the Martells. Also, really not so great yet at the building, and Sunspear just seemed like the next step. So I started with Doran Martell. He is significantly older than his siblings, Elia and Oberyn, due to, life and miscarriages and whatnot. He's got gout, so he's a little bit soft and squishy and thicker. Dornish people are descendant of the great warrior Nymeria, so that is why that they get to be princes and things. And they were the only family that really the Targaryens married into when they weren't marrying themselves. So he's the Prince of Dorne. His daughter also gets to be the heir of Dorne. So their logo is a golden spear through a red sun on an orange field, which is why I chose red, yellow, and orange for their colors. Elia is thin and frail and beautiful. She was born early and has just always had health problems since. The Martells all have olive skin and dark ringlet hair and really dark eyes. It took me a bit to figure out what skin tone I wanted to be olive, just because I'm not a fan of what the cool colors end up looking like. Everyone kind of looks blue or purple. So I played around with that for a little bit. And I changed around her face because she's supposed to be very beautiful. So I picked the most beautiful face that I found that was pre-made in The Sims, which makes her not look like her brother anymore, but that's fine. I wanted airy, breezy clothing. They live in a desert. And they're all very kind of spiritual and free with their sexuality and their clothing. I mean, also because it's hot out, why would you want to be wearing layers? In the books, it is said that they don't really go out in the desert during the day because it's too hot. If you spend too much time out there, you will die. So when they're in their athletic gear, I gave them all head coverings. Their personalities were listed that Elia was smart and kind, and she was witty and generous, and Doran is a little reserved. He doesn't want his people to feel as though he is weak because of his illness, so he hides as much as possible. He's very standoffish. Oberyn is kind of just a loose cannon. He's unpredictable. He's dangerous. He and Elia were thick as thieves their whole lives, which explains why he so fiercely seeks revenge for her. He is tall, thin, and fit, and he looks the most like the description of a salty Dornishman. He has lined face and some flecks of gray in his hair, which is why I chose the hair for him. It was like the first thing I thought of after reading the description. I felt like I wanted to give him a tattoo. There wasn't really a lot that I wanted to do with their athletic gear because he's a knight. So It worked out, but it didn't at the same time. I tend to get frustrated when I have to keep using the same options for everyone. And then I remember that I made a challenge for myself of basically, 700 AD type clothing. And that's not something that The Sims really has. It was hard to find things that would be worn by fictional humans. And I did a lot of looking at the pictures on the wiki. I then needed to separate them because this is the first family that I'm actually starting to build their full branches from. So I need Doran's children, I need Oberyn's children, and then eventually I need to add Ilaria to the Targaryens. So I had to separate them because Oberyn has so many children. He has 8 illegitimate children, 4 of which are with his current paramour. So when I build them, since you can only put 8, I'm going to have to just do 6 out of 8 of his sand snake daughters. I decided to go and demolish these lots because they were the closest to the water. Sunspear is pretty much on the coast. So I'm making plots for Sunspear and plots for the water gardens, which is where they go quite often. In A Feast for Crows, that is pretty much where the Martells spend their fall. And pretty much most of their time, just because there's water and it's cool. So Lady Malaria is from the Free Cities. So she has basically no physical description. So I really had to make her based on the one image that was listed for her. It says that their marriage started off for love, but they've become estranged because where she comes from, you don't ship your children off to be warded by other houses, which is always something that I thought was so strange in reading the books anyway. No one raises their own children. They go get raised by someone else. It just seems strange, but I guess it's a good way to make a connection. They don't send their heir. They're sending their oldest son, and in Dorne, women inherit. So Princess Arianne is the heir to Dorne, so she gets to stay. This leads to, in the books, there's a whole plot line of them trying to make Myrcella Baratheon the heir to the Iron Throne instead of Tommen, because you inherit in birth order, not if you're a boy. So she's pretty tough and pretty self-assured. It says in the description that she prayed to be well endowed. So she grew up to be decent looking. You can't change the height of Sims. Apparently she's very short. But again, the dark hair, the ringlets. I tried to make her look a little bit more like a warrior than the other girls that I had made. And this is where I started to have a hard time with some of the free clothing and the look in general that I was having with the Dornish people. And then I limited myself and started to get frustrated that some of them had to be wearing the same outfits. And then I talked myself into, but you know what? In 700 AD, maybe they just all wore the same things as each other because it's just easier, right? It's not like they had an infinite number of clothing patterns. Quentin is not mentioned on the show, but he is in the books. So he's the one that gets shipped off and is elsewhere. And it says that he's stockier and he's not really as good looking, which is too bad. It's just the way his features ended up playing out based on the description. So I made him a teen, and he's not really, like, the description made him kind of like a doofus. So I made him jealous and clumsy, which is interesting because he's a knight. So whoever is warding him is clearly having a tough time helping him out. He isn't mentioned much in the books either. So even though I'm reading all about the Dornish right now in my reread, I really don't know all that much about him, except for that he's Ariane's brother and he's off someplace. Then we have Trystane, whose physical description is strictly he's got olive skin and straight black hair. So there was nothing for me to base anything for him on. He had the red spots as a child. I didn't do anything to his face with it. I just kind of built what I built. I just kind of designed what I designed with him. And it's tougher with the kid clothing to get the look that I was going for. But I made do. The poor boy, he's betrothed to Myrcella Baratheon. It's not going to work out for you, little buddy. I'm so sorry. But at least I've made you self-assured. I know that he plays games with Myrcella, and he, really tries to learn how to beat it. But they do mention that she's so much better at whatever this imported game was than he was. So I just want to hug him. I feel like he's a little cutie. So I was pretty tired of building at this point. So All right, well, that is enough for now. I am going to just be done with this. Thanks for tuning in.